Olivia Hart learned early that rich people only noticed the help when something went wrong. A glass spilled. A plate dropped. A smile disappeared too soon. Otherwise, girls like her moved through rooms like shadows with name tags, carrying champagne for hands that had never washed dishes, never counted tips under fluorescent light, never sat beside a hospital bed wondering how much another hour of breathing might cost. The Langford Hotel glittered above downtown Chicago like it had been built to deny suffering existed. Crystal chandeliers burned gold over marble floors. Violins played from a balcony wrapped in white roses, and every guest at the charity gala looked polished enough to hide a secret. Olivia wore the black uniform the catering company had given her, hair pinned neatly at the nape of her neck, lips painted a soft color she had bought from a drugstore clearance bin. She was 27, tired, beautiful in a way she never had time to think about, and carrying a tray of champagne through a room full of people who would never remember her face. That was fine. She did not come here to be seen. She came because Mercy Hospital had called that morning about her mother's bill, and the woman on the phone had used a gentle voice that somehow made the number sound even worse. So Olivia smiled when men looked past her. She apologized when women stepped into her path without glancing down. She kept her shoulders straight, counted exits out of habit, and reminded herself that pride did not pay invoices. Near the long champagne table, a young server named Lily fumbled with a tray, her hands shaking so badly that 2 glasses chimed together. A man in a silver tie turned sharply. "Careful," he snapped. "They'll hire anyone now." Lily's face went red. Olivia moved before she thought. She stepped beside the girl, caught the tilting glass with 2 fingers, and replaced it smoothly on the tray. "My mistake, sir," Olivia said, her voice calm. "I bumped her." The man looked her over with the lazy cruelty of someone searching for an easier target. "Then maybe you should watch where you're going." Olivia held his gaze for 1 second longer than a waitress was supposed to. "Of course." Lily whispered thank you as they moved away, but Olivia only shook her head slightly. "Breathe. They get louder when they know you're scared." She thought no one important had seen it. She was wrong. Across the ballroom, Adrian Blackwell stood near a marble column with a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. He had entered 5 minutes earlier, and the room had changed around him the way weather changes before a storm. Men lowered their voices. Women adjusted their smiles. Donors who had laughed too loudly suddenly remembered dignity. Adrian was 39, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that looked less like fashion than armor. His face was handsome in a cold, controlled way, his eyes pale and unreadable, his silence heavy enough to make powerful people nervous. He had ignored every woman who tried to catch his attention. He had ignored the mayor. He had ignored Marcus Vale smiling from the donor table. But he did not ignore the waitress who took blame to protect another girl. Olivia turned back toward the service corridor, unaware that the most dangerous man in the room had finally looked at her. And once Adrian Blackwell looked at someone, the city usually changed shape around them. Adrian Blackwell had built his life on noticing what other men missed. A nervous hand beneath a table, a smile arriving half a second too late, a bodyguard standing too close to the wrong door. Survival, in his world, was not strength. It was attention. And tonight, in a ballroom full of men pretending to be clean, the only person who caught his attention was a waitress who had lied to protect another girl. Olivia Hart did not know his name yet. That interested him more than it should have. Most people in that room felt him before they saw him. They adjusted themselves around his presence, measuring their posture, their words, their greed. But Olivia moved through the gala with the tired focus of someone carrying a private war no one had paid to see. She refilled glasses. She stepped aside before guests collided with her. She smiled when required, not a second longer. And when one of the catering managers snapped at the young server she had protected, Olivia took the blame again, without making herself look weak. Adrian watched from the edge of the ballroom, whiskey still untouched in his hand. Problem, his underboss, Cole Bennett, asked quietly beside him. Adrian's eyes remained on Olivia. The girl. Cole followed his gaze. The waitress. Adrian said nothing. That was answer enough. Cole shifted, cautious. Men who had worked beside Adrian for years knew better than to question the rare moments when something held his interest. Want her checked? Adrian watched Olivia lean close to Lily, saying something that made the younger girl breathe easier. She had fear in her body. Not tonight's fear. Older. Practiced. The kind that taught a person how to skin exits and apologize before being accused. But beneath it, she had steel. Quiet steel. The kind that did not announce itself until someone weaker needed protection. Not yet, Adrian said. Across the room, Marcus Vale laughed too loudly at the donor table. Adrian had come to the Langford for Marcus. Not for charity, not for champagne, and certainly not for a waitress with soft eyes and tired shoulders. Marcus had been moving money through foundations for years, hiding betrayal behind polished speeches and hospital donations. Adrian had waited months to corner him in a room where every smile had witnesses. Then Olivia Hart crossed his line of sight, and the whole night shifted by 1 degree. Small changes mattered. 1 degree was how bullets missed the heart. Olivia stepped into the service corridor with an empty tray, and Adrian moved before he decided to. Cole noticed immediately. Adrian, stay here. Vale is watching. Let him. The service corridor was colder than the ballroom. All white walls, silver carts, and fluorescent light buzzing above staff who knew how to disappear fast. Olivia stood near the supply closet, pressing one hand to her phone, her expression tight. Adrian stopped just beyond the corner, unseen. He heard only fragments. I know, Mom. I'll come after my shift. No, don't tell the nurse I'm worried. Her voice softened, and something unfamiliar tightened in Adrian's chest. Not pity. He did not trust pity. But recognition, maybe. The sound of someone trying not to break because someone else needed them whole. Olivia ended the call, closed her eyes for one breath, then straightened as if pain were a uniform she could smooth into place. When she turned, she nearly collided with him. The tray jerked in her hands. Adrian caught the edge before it fell. For 1 second, they were too close. Her eyes lifted to his, wide and startled, and the practiced waitress smile vanished completely. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't see you. Adrian looked at her face, then at the name tag pinned over her heart. Olivia. That makes one of us, he said. Before she could answer, a voice behind them turned cold with recognition. Olivia Hart. Marcus Vale stood at the end of the corridor, staring at her name tag like he had just seen a ghost. Marcus Vale said Olivia's name like it belonged to a debt he had not finished collecting. The corridor seemed to narrow around the sound. Olivia felt Adrian's hand still holding the edge of her tray, steady, controlled, as if the almost spilled glasses mattered less than the fact that her pulse had suddenly gone visible in her throat. She turned toward Marcus slowly. He stood beneath the fluorescent light at the far end of the service hall, dressed in a midnight blue tuxedo, silver hair combed back, smile smooth enough to fool people who did not know what cruelty looked like when it wore cufflinks. Olivia had served him champagne twice that night without him looking at her. Now he stared at her name tag as if it had opened a door in his memory. Do I know you? She asked. Her voice came out calm. She was proud of that. Marcus took 1 step closer. Adrian did not move, but something about his stillness changed. It became less like a man standing in a hallway and more like a locked door. Hart, Marcus said. That is not a common name. It's common enough. Olivia reached for the tray again. Adrian released it only when her fingers were firm around the metal. Marcus's eyes flicked between them, amused by the proximity, interested in it in a way that made Olivia's skin tighten. Your father was Thomas Hart. It was not a question. The tray felt heavier in Olivia's hands. For a second, the hallway disappeared, and she was 16 again, standing beside a closed casket while adults whispered words like accident, investigation, complicated. Her mother had cried without making a sound. Olivia had learned that day that silence could be louder than screaming. My father is dead, she said. Marcus's smile softened into something almost sympathetic, which made it worse. Yes, men who take what is not theirs often end that way. Olivia's face went cold. Excuse me. Adrian's voice cut in before Marcus could answer. Careful, Vale. Marcus looked at him then, and the air between the two men changed so sharply Olivia felt it before she understood it. These were not strangers. These were men with history buried under expensive fabric and public manners. Blackwell, Marcus said lightly. I didn't realize you were making friends with the staff tonight. You realize very little until it's too late. Marcus chuckled, but his eyes returned to Olivia. Tell me, Miss Hart, did your mother ever explain what your father was involved in before he died? Olivia's grip tightened around the tray until her knuckles paled. Do not speak about my mother. The words surprised her. They surprised Marcus too. For one brief second, his polished smile cracked. Adrian saw it. Olivia saw Adrian see it. That should not have comforted her, but it did. From the ballroom, a catering supervisor appeared, breathless and nervous. Olivia, Mr. Vale requested you at the donor table. Champagne service. Olivia looked at Marcus. His smile had returned. Just service, he said. Nothing to fear. Adrian stepped slightly closer to her shoulder. Not touching. Close enough. She's busy. Olivia turned to him, anger and fear mixing in her chest. I can speak for myself. Adrian looked down at her, and for the first time, she saw something like approval beneath the coldness. Marcus watched them both with quiet satisfaction, as if he had just discovered a weakness worth studying. Then he leaned toward Olivia just enough for his voice to lower. Ask your mother about the black ledger, he said. Before someone else does. He walked back toward the ballroom, leaving the words behind like a threat wrapped in velvet. Olivia stood frozen under the corridor lights, the tray trembling now despite her best effort. Adrian's gaze moved from her face to Marcus's retreating back. What ledger? He asked. Olivia swallowed hard. I have no idea. But inside her dress, beneath the collar of her uniform, the small silver locket her father had left her suddenly felt heavier than it ever had before. Olivia returned to the ballroom with Marcus Vale's words moving under her skin like a slow poison. Ask your mother about the black ledger. Before someone else does. She kept her face calm because waitresses did not get the luxury of falling apart beneath chandeliers. They carried trays. They smiled. They made themselves useful while powerful men spoke in riddles about dead fathers and missing books. But the silver locket beneath her uniform collar felt warm against her chest, almost alive, as if her father had left more than a memory behind. She moved behind the champagne table and began arranging fresh glasses in perfect rows. Order helped. Straight lines helped. Small tasks kept fear from becoming visible. Across the ballroom, Adrian Blackwell had not returned to the donor circle. He stood near the edge of the room, watching her with the same unreadable stillness that made other people look away first. Olivia forced herself not to look back. She did not know him. She did not trust him. And she hated the small, dangerous part of herself that felt safer when he was near. You have his eyes, Marcus said behind her. Olivia's fingers tightened around a champagne flute. She did not turn quickly. She refused to give him that satisfaction. I'm working. So was your father. Marcus stepped beside the table, close enough that anyone watching would think he was simply asking for a drink. His smile remained pleasant. His voice dropped low. He worked in garages, hospitals, warehouses. Always fixing things. Always seeing things men like him were paid not to see. Olivia placed another glass down carefully. I told you not to speak about him. And I told you to ask your mother. Marcus reached for a flute, but did not lift it. His cufflink flashed under the chandelier light, a dark circular symbol etched into silver. Olivia's breath caught before she could stop it. The same symbol was engraved on the back of her father's locket. She had traced it 100 times as a girl, never knowing what it meant. Marcus saw her reaction. His smile sharpened. So he did leave you something. Olivia's hand went instinctively toward her collar. Marcus's eyes followed. Don't, she whispered. Don't come near me. Then listen carefully. His pleasant expression never changed, but the warmth left his eyes completely. Your father took something that belonged to people who do not forgive. If it is in your possession, you will return it. Quietly. Tonight. Olivia's throat tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. You will. He leaned closer, voice soft enough to disappear beneath the violin music. Your mother is at Mercy Hospital, isn't she? Room 512, unless they moved her again. The room blurred for half a second. Olivia gripped the table edge. Marcus picked up a glass at last, smiling as if they were discussing donations. Women like you should be careful what they inherit. Olivia wanted to throw the champagne in his face. She wanted to scream. Instead, she straightened. If you know where my mother is, then you already know I have nothing worth taking. Marcus looked amused. Everyone has something worth taking. He walked away before she could answer, leaving Olivia behind the champagne table with shaking hands and a heartbeat too loud for the music. One glass slipped. She caught it, but not before the stems chimed together. Across the ballroom, Adrian heard it. Or maybe he had never stopped watching closely enough to miss it. His gaze moved from Olivia's pale face to Marcus, returning to the donor table with satisfaction in his smile. Something in Adrian changed. Not visibly. Not to anyone who did not understand danger. But Cole Bennett straightened near the marble column as if he had heard an order no one else could hear. Olivia looked down, trying to breathe, trying to decide whether to leave, call the hospital, run, or pretend none of this was happening until her shift ended. Then the crowd before her parted. Adrian Blackwell crossed the ballroom toward her, every conversation lowering as he passed. He stopped in front of the champagne table, close enough that she could see the pale storm in his eyes. "Olivia," he said. Her name in his voice sounded less like a question than a decision. She lifted her chin. "I'm working." Adrian extended his hand in front of the entire gala. "Not anymore." Adrian Blackwell's hand remained extended over the champagne table, still and patient, while the entire Langford ballroom seemed to hold its breath around it. Olivia stared at his palm as if it were a trap disguised as rescue. Men like Adrian did not offer hands for free. They offered them the way kings offered mercy, in public, with every witness understanding there would be a price later. "I said I'm working," she repeated, though her voice was not as steady this time. Adrian's pale eyes moved once to the silver locket beneath her collar, then back to her face. He had seen too much. That was the problem with dangerous men. The observant ones were always worse. "Marcus Vale knows where your mother is," he said quietly. "That means your shift ended the moment he said her room number." Olivia's stomach tightened. She glanced toward the donor table. Marcus was seated again, champagne in hand, smiling at a councilman as if he had not just put his fingers around the weakest part of her life. "I need to call the hospital." "You will. Now. Not from here." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get to decide that." Something almost like approval passed through Adrian's expression, brief and controlled. "No," he said, "but I do get to decide whether Vale watches you panic." The words landed harder because they were true. Olivia hated that. She hated that her hands were still shaking. Hated that Marcus had found her mother's room. Hated that Adrian Blackwell, a man she had known for less than an hour, could read her fear better than people who had known her for years. A catering manager hovered near the end of the table, pale with confusion, clearly unsure whether to interrupt the most dangerous donor in the building. Adrian did not look at her. "She's done for the evening." The manager opened her mouth, then thought better of it and disappeared into the service crowd. Olivia's cheeks warmed. "You can't just dismiss me like I belong to you." Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice so the room saw intimacy, but heard nothing. "I'm trying to make them think exactly that." Her breath caught. "What?" "Vale approached you because he thought you were alone." Adrian's gaze shifted briefly over the ballroom. "Men like him choose corners, corridors, people without witnesses. If you leave through the service exit, he follows. If you call the hospital where he can see your hands shake, he knows he hit the right nerve." Olivia swallowed. "And what do you suggest?" Adrian's hand remained between them. "Dance with me." The words were quiet, but somehow they moved through her like a shock. The violin music swelled behind them, elegant and cruel. Couples turned beneath the chandeliers, diamonds flashing, silk brushing marble, the whole room performing wealth while Olivia stood in a black server's uniform with fear caught beneath her ribs. "That is your solution?" she asked. "To dance." "No." Adrian looked past her toward Marcus. "To make every person in this room believe you are under my protection before Vale can move you somewhere darker." Olivia looked at his hand again. It was broad, steady, expensive watch at his wrist, knuckles scarred faintly beneath perfect tailoring. A hand that had probably signed contracts, given orders, ended negotiations with silence. A hand that could pull her out of danger or pull her into something worse. "People will talk," she said. "Good. They'll think I'm your entertainment." His eyes returned to hers, colder now. "Not if I look at them first." For 1 second, Olivia almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of her life had become unbearable. That morning she had counted crumpled bills at her kitchen table, deciding which hospital notice could wait. Now a mafia boss was asking her to dance in front of the man who might know why her father died. Marcus raised his glass across the room, watching. Olivia felt the locket burn against her skin. Adrian's voice dropped one last time. "Take my hand, Olivia. Let him wonder what you became while he was busy threatening you." The entire gala seemed to lean toward her answer. Olivia did not take Adrian Blackwell's hand. For one long second, the space between his palm and her fingers became the most dangerous place in the Langford Hotel. The music continued because musicians were paid to pretend they did not notice fear. Glasses still sparkled beneath the chandeliers. Silk gowns still moved across marble. But the people nearest the champagne table had stopped speaking, and silence spread outward in widening circles until even the donors at the main table looked over. No one refused Adrian Blackwell in public. Olivia understood that before anyone told her. She saw it in the catering manager's pale face, in the way Cole Bennett straightened near the column, in Marcus Vale's slow, delighted smile from across the ballroom. A smarter woman might have taken Adrian's hand. A frightened woman certainly would have. But Olivia had spent too many years watching powerful men turn women's fear into permission. Her father's name had been used like a threat. Her mother's hospital room had been recited like leverage. Now a mafia boss was offering protection in front of a room that would reduce her to gossip by morning. She lifted her chin. No, the word was quiet, but it landed hard enough to change the room. Adrian's expression did not shift. That made the refusal feel even sharper. His hand remained extended for another heartbeat before he lowered it slowly. No, he repeated, not angry, not amused, testing the shape of it. Olivia gripped the edge of the champagne table behind her. I'm not something men move around a room. A faint murmur passed through the crowd. Someone behind her inhaled too quickly. Marcus's smile widened as if he had just been handed a gift. Olivia felt the danger of what she had done only after the words were already alive between them. Adrian stepped closer, not enough to trap her, only enough to make the room understand that he was still the storm everyone feared. You think that's what I'm doing? He asked. I think Marcus Vale threatened my mother, and you decided the solution was to make me look like yours. The last word came out colder than she intended. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Not at her uniform, not at her tray, at her, the kind of looking that made her feel unhidden and exposed at once. If you were mine, he said softly, Vale would already be leaving the city. Heat moved up her throat, anger and something far more dangerous tangled together. Then I'm lucky I'm not. The room went dead silent. Even Marcus stopped smiling for half a second. Olivia's heart pounded so hard she wondered if Adrian could hear it. She expected punishment, anger, humiliation, the casual cruelty men used when pride was wounded in public. Instead, Adrian's eyes changed. Not softened. Never that. But sharpened with something like respect. There she is, he murmured. Olivia blinked. What? The woman your fear was trying to hide. Before she could answer, Marcus rose from the donor table. Adrian saw him move. So did Olivia. The danger was no longer behind the champagne table. It was walking toward her, smiling for witnesses. Adrian leaned closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear the warning beneath it. Then refuse me again, he said. But this time, let him understand why he should be afraid you did. Marcus Vale crossed the ballroom like a man walking toward property he believed had been misplaced. His smile was smooth, his champagne glass untouched, his cufflink flashing beneath the chandelier light with every measured step. Olivia saw the symbol again and felt the locket beneath her collar answer it with cold weight. Her father's secret was no longer buried in the past. It was standing 12 feet away in a tuxedo, using her mother's hospital room as a leash. Adrian stood beside her, close enough that the room could mistake proximity for possession, but not close enough to cage her. That mattered. Olivia hated that it mattered. Miss Hart, Marcus said when he reached them. I hope Mr. Blackwell isn't distracting you from your responsibilities. Olivia lifted her chin. My responsibilities don't include listening to threats. The nearest guests went still. Marcus's smile held, but his eyes sharpened. Threats? At a charity gala? That's an ugly accusation. So, is mentioning my mother's hospital room to scare me? A ripple moved through the people around them. Quiet, polished, hungry. Adrian did not speak, and somehow his silence made the room more afraid than Marcus's anger. Marcus glanced at him. You should be careful with her, Adrian. Girls like this confuse attention with importance. Olivia felt the words hit old bruises. Not on her skin. Deeper. Every landlord who had talked down to her. Every doctor who had explained bills like mercy was a favor. Every rich guest who had snapped fingers at her without learning her name. Before fear could swallow her voice, Adrian leaned slightly toward her. Refuse me, he murmured. Olivia's pulse jumped. She understood then. He was giving her the scene back. Not taking it. Giving it. She turned toward him, loud enough for Marcus and the nearest guests to hear. I won't dance with you, Mr. Blackwell. The ballroom froze harder than before. Adrian looked at her as if no one else existed. His expression stayed cold, but something in his eyes burned with quiet approval. No, he asked. No, Olivia said. I'm not here to entertain powerful men. A woman gasped softly near the champagne table. Cole Bennett shifted by the column, watching Marcus now instead of Adrian. Marcus laughed under his breath. How brave. Or foolish. Adrian stepped closer to Olivia, slow enough that she could move away if she wanted. She did not. He lowered his head beside her ear, his voice so quiet it seemed meant only for her, but his eyes stayed on Marcus. Mine, he whispered slowly. One word. No raised voice. No touch. No ring. No kiss. But the room understood it as clearly as if he had shattered a glass against the marble floor. Olivia stopped breathing. The word should have offended her. It did. A part of her wanted to slap it back at him, remind him she belonged to no one, least of all a man whose name made criminals lower their eyes. But another part of her understood the shape of the warning beneath it. He had not said it to own her. He had said it so Marcus would know reaching for her meant reaching through him. Marcus's smile disappeared for the first time that night. Adrian straightened, his gaze still locked on him. You wanted to know her importance, he said. Now you do. Olivia's heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear the violins. Marcus set his champagne glass on the table with careful precision. Careful, Blackwell. You may not know what she's carrying. Adrian's eyes flicked once to Olivia's locket, then back to Marcus. Then I'll find out before you do. Marcus leaned closer, his voice low and poisonous. Ask her why Thomas Hart died running from men he betrayed. Olivia went cold. Adrian felt it without looking at her. His hand lifted, not touching her back, merely hovering there like a wall made of restraint. Marcus stepped away with a small smile restored. Enjoy your dance that never happened. As he returned to the donor table, whispers spread across the ballroom faster than candlelight catching silk. Olivia was no longer staff, no longer invisible, no longer safe in the old way. Adrian looked down at her. Now they think you're mine. Olivia swallowed, anger and fear tangled in her throat. And what happens when they find out I'm not? Adrian's voice dropped. That depends on whether you run before I can protect you. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket before she could answer. A message from an unknown number lit the screen. Give him the locket, or Mercy Hospital loses your mother before midnight. Olivia read the message twice before the words became real. Give him the locket, or Mercy Hospital loses your mother before midnight. The ballroom did not change, and that made it worse. Violins still played. Champagne still glowed beneath chandeliers. Guests still whispered behind polished smiles, turning her into tonight's new scandal while her mother's life had been reduced to a line on a screen. Her fingers tightened around the phone until the edges bit into her palm. Adrian saw the color leave her face. Show me. No, the answer came fast, instinctive. Too fast. His eyes dropped to the phone, then to the locket hidden beneath her collar. Olivia, don't use that voice. What voice? The one that makes people obey before they think. A faint shadow moved across his expression. Then think quickly. She looked toward Marcus Vale's table. He was speaking with a councilman, calm, smiling, not even watching her now. That was how certain he was. He had placed fear inside her pocket and trusted it to do the work. Olivia's throat burned. He threatened my mother. Adrian's stillness sharpened. The message. She handed him the phone before pride could stop her. His face did not change as he read it, but something colder entered the space around them. Cole Bennett appeared at his side, as if pulled by silence. Adrian gave him the phone. Mercy Hospital. Room 512. Confirm she's there. Quietly. Cole was already moving before Adrian finished. Olivia stepped after him. I'm going with him. Adrian blocked her path with one controlled movement. No, that is my mother. And that is exactly why you won't run into the first trap Vale leaves open. Her eyes flashed. You don't get to decide what I do. I know. His voice lowered. But I can see the board faster than you can right now. She hated him for being right. She hated him more for standing close enough to make the room believe she had not just been threatened, but chosen. Around them, the whispers had changed. She heard fragments like broken glass. Blackwell said mine. The waitress. Did you see Vale's face? She must be someone. Someone. Not staff. Not invisible. Someone, because a dangerous man had spoken one word beside her ear. Olivia looked up at Adrian. You turn me into gossip. No, his gaze moved across the room, touching every man who looked too long. I turned gossip into a wall. I am not yours. I know. The answer came so quietly it unsettled her more than possession would have. But every person who wants to hurt you needs to believe you are until I know what your father left behind. The locket felt heavy against her chest. And after that, for the first time, Adrian did not answer immediately. His eyes held hers, pale and unreadable, but not empty. After that, he said, you can hate me with better information. She almost laughed. It came out as a shaky breath instead. Across the ballroom, Marcus lifted his glass in a silent toast. Adrian's jaw tightened, but before he could move, another man approached from the donor table, younger, blonde, expensive, with a smile too curious to be harmless. So this is her, he said, stopping beside Olivia. The girl worth ruining an evening over. Adrian's body went still. Olivia did not step back. The man extended his hand toward her wrist, eyes bright with the thrill of testing a rumor. Evan Pierce, he said. And you are. His fingers brushed Olivia's skin before she could pull away. The music kept playing, but Adrian's voice cut through it like a blade. Careful. Adrian's warning did not make Evan Pierce remove his hand. It only made him smile wider, the kind of smile men wore when they believed money could turn consequences into stories told later over drinks. His fingers still circled Olivia's wrist lightly, not painful, not yet, but familiar enough to make her skin crawl. Around them, the gala had gone quiet in that elegant way rich rooms did when they smelled blood but wanted plausible deniability. Careful, Evan repeated, amused. That sounds dramatic. I was only introducing myself. Olivia pulled her wrist back. Evan let go a fraction too late. Adrian saw it. So did Marcus Vale from the donor table. So did every guest pretending to study champagne bubbles instead of the man in black whose silence had become a threat with a pulse. Olivia rubbed her wrist once, then forced her hand still. She would not give Evan the satisfaction of seeing how badly she wanted to step behind Adrian. Introduction accepted, she said. Now you can leave. Evan's eyes brightened. She speaks. Adrian's voice was quiet. She warned you politely. Evan looked at him. And you speak for her now? Olivia turned her head toward Adrian before he could answer. No. The word came sharp enough to cut through the tension. Adrian's gaze moved to her face. He did not interrupt. That gave her room to breathe. Olivia looked back at Evan. He doesn't speak for me. But if you touch me again, I won't need him to tell you to stop. Something flickered across Evan's face. Surprise first. Then irritation. He had expected a frightened waitress. Maybe a trembling ornament in a scandal borrowed from Adrian Blackwell. He had not expected a woman with fear in her eyes and steel in her spine. You're brave for someone wearing a catering uniform, he said softly. Adrian stepped forward. Not fast, not loud, just enough for Evan to understand that the next inch belonged to him. Take your hand off the idea of her, too. Evan laughed once, but it died quickly. Jesus, Adrian. Marcus said you were protective tonight. But this is almost romantic. At Marcus's name, Olivia's stomach tightened. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Vale sent you. No one sends me anywhere. Evan lifted his champagne glass, but his fingers were less steady now. I go where the interesting rumors are. His gaze dropped to Olivia's collar, to the thin chain disappearing beneath her uniform. And tonight, the rumor has a locket. Olivia's hand flew to her chest before she could stop herself. Adrian noticed. Evan noticed more. His smile returned. There it is. Adrian moved between them so smoothly that Olivia barely saw the shift until Evan was no longer looking at her, but at the wall of Adrian Blackwell's shoulders. You're done, Adrian said. Evan's jaw tightened. You don't own the room. No. Adrian's voice stayed calm. I own what happens after men forget where they are. The nearest guests went completely still. Even the violins seemed softer now, as if the musicians had begun playing carefully. Evan swallowed, pride fighting instinct. Instinct won first. He stepped back. Enjoy your waitress, he muttered. Olivia felt Adrian change before he spoke. Apologize. Evan froze. What? Adrian looked at him with the patience of a man offering one last door before the room locked. To her, Olivia's breath caught. She had been insulted in restaurants, hospital offices, grocery lines, landlord meetings. Men like Evan never apologized to women like her. They waited for women like her to absorb the insult and call it survival. Evan's face flushed. The crowd leaned closer without moving. Marcus watched from across the room, expression unreadable now. Olivia could feel the entire gala trying to decide what she had become. Evan forced his eyes to hers. "I apologize," he said, each word bitter. Olivia held his gaze. "For what?" Adrian's mouth almost moved. Not a smile. Something colder and more satisfied. Evan's humiliation sharpened. "For touching you without permission." "And?" Olivia asked. "For speaking to you disrespectfully." Olivia nodded once. "Accepted." Evan walked away stiffly, disappearing into the guests who suddenly found their conversations again. The room exhaled in pieces. Adrian turned toward Olivia, his voice low. "You didn't need me." "No," she said, though her pulse was still shaking through her body. "But you enjoyed making him apologize." "Yes." The honesty unsettled her. Before she could answer, Cole Bennett returned through the side entrance, his face controlled but grim. Adrian saw him and went still. "Report." Cole glanced at Olivia, then lowered his voice. "Her mother is still at mercy. For now. But someone filed a transfer order 20 minutes ago." Olivia's knees nearly weakened. "Who signed it?" Cole hesitated. That hesitation scared her more than the answer. Thomas Hart. The name of her dead father fell between them like a glass breaking on marble. Olivia reached for her locket with shaking fingers, and this time, when her thumb pressed the back of the silver casing, something inside it clicked open. The locket opened with a sound too small for the size of the truth it carried. Olivia stared down at it, her thumb still pressed against the hidden hinge, while the entire gala blurred into gold light and distant music around her. For 21 years, the silver locket had been the only thing of her father's she could touch without breaking. She had worn it to school, to job interviews, to hospital visits, to nights when rent notices sat unopened on her kitchen table. She had thought it held a memory. She had never known it held a mechanism. Inside, beneath the tiny faded photograph of Thomas Hart smiling beside her mother, was a thin black data card no bigger than a fingernail, sealed under a strip of transparent tape. Behind it, folded so tightly it looked like a sliver of shadow, was a piece of paper. Olivia's breath caught. Adrian saw the card. Cole saw it. Across the ballroom, Marcus Vale saw Olivia looking down and stopped smiling mid-sentence. That terrified her more than his threats. "Close it," Adrian said quietly. Olivia's fingers moved on instinct, snapping the locket shut against her palm. Marcus started toward them. Not quickly. Men like Marcus never ran where witnesses could see. But every step had purpose now. Adrian shifted closer, turning his body just enough to block Marcus's view without touching Olivia. "Walk with me." "Where?" "Somewhere he can't read your face." Olivia looked up at him. "Did you know?" Adrian's eyes sharpened. "Know what?" "That my father hid something in this." His silence lasted half a second too long. It was not guilt. Not exactly. But it was knowledge, and Olivia felt it cut through her fear. "Move," he said. "That is not an answer." "No," Adrian said, his voice low. "It is the reason you're still standing here instead of being dragged through a service exit." The words should have scared her. They did. But Marcus was getting closer, and the locket in her fist suddenly felt like the center of every lie in the room. Olivia walked. Adrian did not grab her, did not push her, did not make a scene. He simply moved beside her, and the crowd parted as if fear had weight. Cole fell in behind them, speaking quietly into his phone. "Private West Corridor." Now, they reached a dark alcove near the ballroom doors, half hidden behind white floral arrangements and velvet curtains. Adrian stepped in first, checked the hallway beyond, then looked at Olivia. "Open it again." "No." His gaze returned to her face. "Olivia, you don't get to command me through my father's secrets." Something flickered in his expression, controlled but real. "Then open it because your mother's name is already in Vale's hands." She hated that he knew exactly where to press. With shaking fingers, she opened the locket. Adrian did not take it from her. He only leaned closer, careful, eyes narrowing as he read the folded paper. She eased free. There were 3 lines in her father's handwriting. "Mercy Trust is the ledger. The names are in the card. If Vale finds Olivia, Blackwell will know why I ran." Olivia's blood went cold. She looked at Adrian, but his face had become unreadable stone. "You knew my father." It was not a question anymore. Adrian's jaw tightened. From the ballroom, Marcus's voice floated closer, pleasant and deadly. Miss Hart? Leaving so soon? Adrian closed his hand gently over Olivia's fist, hiding the locket from sight. Not a word, he murmured. But Olivia pulled back, eyes burning. Tell me why my dead father trusted you before I decide whether I should. Adrian did not answer Olivia in the alcove, not because he had nothing to say, but because Marcus Vale was close enough now that every word would become ammunition before it became truth. His hand moved to the small of her back, stopped before touching, then lowered again as if he remembered she had not granted him that right. Walk, he said. Olivia's eyes flashed. I asked you a question, and I'm keeping you alive long enough to hear the answer. Marcus appeared between the velvet curtains, smile pleasant, eyes sharp. There you are. I was afraid Miss Hart had run off with something that doesn't belong to her. Olivia closed her fist around the locket. Adrian stepped beside her, not in front this time. Careful, he said. Marcus looked amused. You've said that a lot tonight. Because you keep surviving the warning. The smile faded from Marcus's face. Before the tension could split open, Cole Bennett arrived at the corridor entrance with 2 guards in dark suits. Adrian did not look away from Marcus. Escort Mr. Vale back to the ballroom. Marcus laughed softly. You don't escort me anywhere. Tonight I do. The guards did not touch him. They did not need to. The hallway filled with enough quiet threat that Marcus's pride had to choose between leaving and making a scene too early. He chose leaving, but his eyes stayed on Olivia as he backed away. Ask him about the night your father begged, he said. Then he disappeared into the gold noise of the gala. Olivia felt the words cut through her chest. Begged. Her father had begged someone. Adrian turned toward the west corridor. Now, this time Olivia followed, because anger had become stronger than fear. They moved past staff doors, past mirrors framed in brass, past a private elevator guarded by one of Adrian's men. At the end of the hall, he opened a glass door to a balcony overlooking Chicago. Rain streaked the city lights into silver lines. Cold air hit Olivia's face and helped her breathe. Adrian shut the door behind them, leaving the gala muffled and distant. Tell me, she said. Adrian stood a few feet away, giving her space no one else had given her all night. Your father came to me 6 years ago. Olivia went still. Why? Because he had repaired cars for men who worked for Vale. He heard things he wasn't supposed to hear. Then he found records tied to Mercy Trust, hospital donations, shell companies, judges, police, transfers disguised as charity. Olivia looked down at the locket in her hand. The ledger. Yes. Adrian's voice hardened. Thomas tried to bring it to me because he knew Vale had men inside the police. He asked for protection for you and your mother. Olivia's throat tightened. And you said no. Adrian's jaw flexed once. I said yes. The rain tapped against the balcony rail. Then why is he dead? Because I was late. The words came out flat, controlled, but something behind them was not cold at all. It was old guilt, buried deep and kept sharp. Olivia hated that she could hear it. Adrian looked at the city instead of her. By the time my men reached him, the car had already gone off the bridge. Your mother was in surgery. You were at school. Vale cleaned the scene before sunrise. Olivia's eyes burned. You let me believe my father died in an accident. I didn't know where he hid the evidence. I didn't know about the locket. But you knew about me. He turned then. I knew Thomas Hart had a daughter he died trying to protect. Silence stretched between them, full of rain and everything unsaid. Olivia pressed the locket to her chest. So what do you want from me? Adrian's eyes held hers. At first, the card. Her stomach dropped. At first, he stepped closer, slow enough that she could retreat. She did not. Then I watched you refuse the most dangerous man in that ballroom with your hands shaking and your chin up. His voice lowered. Now I want to know how someone that afraid still refuses to become anyone's property. Olivia's breath caught before she could stop it. Behind the balcony door, Cole appeared, face grim. Adrian saw him and opened the door. What? Cole looked at Olivia first. Mercy Hospital just called your phone again. Olivia reached for it with shaking fingers. A new message filled the screen. Your mother has been moved. Bring the locket to the old church before dawn, or she never comes home. Olivia stared at the message until the letters stopped looking like words and became a door opening beneath her feet. Your mother has been moved. Bring the locket to the old church before dawn, or she never comes home. For a moment, The balcony disappeared. The rain, the city, the gold-lit Gala behind the glass. Even Adrian Blackwell standing in front of her with that controlled storm in his eyes. All of it went distant. All she could see was her mother in a hospital bed, pale hands folded over a blanket, pretending not to be afraid so Olivia would not break. "No," Olivia whispered. It was not denial. It was a prayer that arrived too late. Adrian took the phone from her hand, read the message once, then passed it to Cole. His voice became low and precise. "Lock down Mercy's exits. Check cameras, elevators, private transfers, ambulance logs. No uniforms unless they are mine. I want the name of every person who touched her chart in the last hour." Cole nodded and moved back inside, already speaking into his earpiece. Olivia stepped toward the balcony door. Adrian caught her wrist gently. Not a grip. A stop. She looked down at his hand, then up at him. He released her immediately. "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" Her voice shook with fury. "Don't ask me to be calm. Don't ask me to wait. Don't ask me to trust men who already failed my father." The last words hit him. She saw it. Adrian Blackwell, who had stood untouched beneath every accusation in the ballroom, flinched only in his eyes. "I failed him once," he said. "I won't fail you. You don't get to make that promise." "I already did." Olivia laughed once, broken and breathless. "That is exactly the problem. Men like you make promises like they're orders. But she is my mother. Mine. Not a ledger. Not leverage. Not part of your war with Marcus Vale." Adrian stepped closer, rain gathering in his dark hair, his suit catching the cold silver light from the city. "Vale wants you moving alone, scared, and desperate." That message was not a demand. It was a route. "Then I'll change the route." He planned for that. "You don't know everything." "No," Adrian said quietly. "But I know predators. They don't choose old churches for mercy." Olivia's hand closed around the locket until the silver edge pressed into her skin. Inside it was the card her father had died hiding. Inside it were names powerful enough to make Marcus Vale threaten a sick woman in a hospital bed. For years, Olivia had thought poverty was the thing trying to crush her. Now she understood poverty had only made her easier to corner. "What's on the card?" she asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Enough to bury Vale. Then it can save my mother." "Not if you hand it to him." "You don't know that." "I do." His voice sharpened. "Because men like Vale don't leave witnesses behind when fear has already worked." Olivia went still. The meaning was clear, even without the ugly details. Adrian's expression shifted as if he regretted the cruelty of the truth, but he did not take it back. That was another terrible thing about him. He did not comfort with lies. Behind the balcony door, the gala continued without shame. People were still laughing, still drinking, still donating money to a hospital foundation built over secrets and threats. Olivia looked through the glass and saw Marcus near the donor table, speaking calmly to a woman in pearls. He did not look worried. He looked patient, like a man waiting for a frightened daughter to do exactly what frightened daughters did. "I need to speak to him," Olivia said. "No, not to obey him. To make him believe I will." Adrian studied her face. "You're thinking." "I've been thinking since he said my mother's room number." She swallowed hard, forcing the panic into something sharper. "He knows I love her. He knows I'm afraid. So let him see that. Let him think I'll bring the locket." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "And while he thinks that..." Olivia opened the locket with shaking fingers and removed the data card. The small black square looked harmless in her palm. It had destroyed her father's life. It might save her mother's. "We make a copy." Adrian looked at her then, truly looked, and something like dark admiration moved through his silence. "There may not be time." "Then find time." Isn't that what powerful men do? For the first time that night, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Not a smile. Something earned. Cole returned, face grim. "Mercy confirms she was transferred out under a private medical order." The signature was digital. Thomas Hart again. Olivia's stomach twisted. "My father has been dead 6 years." "Someone is using his credentials," Cole said. "Or using records tied to him." Adrian's gaze went to the locket. "Mercy Trust." The pieces locked together with a quiet horror. Her father's name had not just been remembered. It had been kept alive inside the system that killed him. Olivia closed the locket and slipped the data card into Adrian's hand. "Copy it. Now." His fingers closed around it, but his eyes stayed on her. "You stay with me. I stay until my mother is safe." "Olivia." Do not make this romantic when she is missing. His expression darkened, but he nodded once. Then make it strategic. You do not leave my sight. Inside the ballroom, Marcus finally turned toward the balcony. Their eyes met through the rain-streaked glass. Slowly, he lifted his phone. Olivia's own phone buzzed in her hand. A new message appeared. Come alone, or Blackwell receives your mother in pieces of silence. Olivia read the new message once, and the words did what Marcus Vale had designed them to do. They split the world into two impossible choices. Come alone, or Blackwell receives your mother in pieces of silence. Not blood, not a body. Silence. The kind her mother had used for years to hide pain from her daughter. The kind Thomas Hart had taken to his grave. The kind powerful men expected poor women to carry without making noise. Adrian reached for the phone, but Olivia pulled it back. No, his eyes locked on hers. Do not protect me from information. I'm not protecting you. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, too calm for the panic tearing through her chest. I'm protecting her. By walking into Vale's hands. By making him believe I will. Adrian studied her for one long second. Rain moved down the glass behind him, turning the ballroom lights into gold scars. You're lying. Olivia's throat tightened. You don't know me well enough to know that. I know your hand stops shaking when you decide to sacrifice yourself. The sentence hit too close. She looked away first. Inside the ballroom, Marcus still watched them from beyond the glass, phone in hand, patient as a spider at the center of a web. Cole returned with a small black drive case and a grim expression. We can copy the card in 7 minutes if the hotel's security room is clean. Adrian did not look away from Olivia. Do it, Adrian, now. Cole took the data card and disappeared back into the corridor. Olivia waited until Adrian turned to follow him. That was her mistake and her chance. One breath, one open balcony door, one crowded ballroom full of people pretending not to stare. She moved before courage could fail her. She slipped through the glass doors, into the gold noise of the gala, past the white flowers, past the champagne table where Lily turned and whispered her name. Olivia did not stop. She kept her face composed because panic drew attention, and tonight attention had become another weapon. She crossed the service corridor, took the staff elevator down, and stepped into the underground parking garage with the locket cold against her chest and a copy of Nothing in her hand. Her plan was terrible. She knew that. But terrible plans were still plans when someone you loved had been taken. The garage smelled of rainwater, concrete, and gasoline. Fluorescent lights flickered above rows of black cars. Olivia had made it halfway to the exit ramp when headlights cut on ahead of her. A black SUV rolled forward and stopped across her path. Her heart seized. The driver's door opened. Adrian stepped out into the harsh white light, coat dark from rain, face carved from controlled fury. He had not sent a guard. He had come himself. You don't get to disappear, he said, voice low, after becoming mine. Olivia's anger rose fast because fear needed somewhere to go. I never became yours. No, he said, walking toward her. You became the woman I'm not letting Vale bury in another one of his secrets. Her eyes burned. My mother is alive. Olivia froze. Adrian held up his phone. On the screen was a hospital security image. Her mother seated in a wheelchair beside an elevator, frightened but breathing, guarded by a nurse Olivia did not recognize. Vale moved her to make you run. He hasn't taken her out of the city yet. The relief almost broke her knees. Adrian caught her elbow before she fell, careful even in anger. The copy is done, he said. Cole is tracing the transfer route. We go to the church together, with the real card hidden and the fake one in your locket. Olivia looked up at him through tears she refused to let fall. And if he knows? Adrian's gaze moved past her shoulder. The garage exit lights flickered once. Then again. Every car alarm in the lower level went silent at the same time. His hand shifted, placing her behind him without force. From the darkness near the exit ramp, Olivia's phone began to ring. She answered with shaking fingers. Marcus Vale's voice came softly through the speaker. You brought him. Good. Now let's see which one of you he saves first.